What's going on, everyone? Gilman with the Wellthy Stocks, back with our weekly Apple update video where we take a look at how Apple stock traded this past week, key support and resistance levels that we are looking at moving into the future, and based on that, what we think Apple stock could do. We'll take a look at some key pieces of news this past week as well that could impact Apple stock, that may already have impacted Apple stock actually. So if you enjoy videos like this, don't forget to hit that like button down below, subscribe to my channel if you are new, and comment down below what your thoughts on Apple are, and I'd love to chat with you guys down there. So let me hit record and we will get right into the video. So as you guys know, we had a shortened trading week for the past Monday being off, being a holiday. So that's why we only had 4 trading days. But as you can see from the 5-day chart here, right, what we saw was, a fall and a continued fall pretty much on Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday looked like maybe we started to come back up, and then Friday we had a fall but rebounded a little bit. So let's take a look at that, but before we do that, let's cover something real quick, and that is some news that came out this past week that Warren Buffett, who has always been super bullish on Apple, sold a little bit of their Apple share, right? Not saying they're out of the company, but they sold a little bit of it, and let's take a look at why. That's something that makes sense from a perspective of moving money around, right? So taking a look at their buying and selling, what they're doing is taking advantage of the fact that Apple has ran a lot this past year in 2020, but B, the fact that some other value names are still kind of trailing because they haven't really recovered from the COVID kind of hit that they took, right? So a lot of stocks like Apple, you're talking Apple, Tesla, Amazon, big tech names, right? They've really done well in 2020, but then you've got other names, Chevron's a good example, or you take any airline really, right? They haven't done too well during the COVID time. They haven't done really well in 2020. And as we get more vaccines, right, those stocks are more likely to recover than some of these other stocks. So with that in mind, let's take a look at this article. We're not going to dive too deep into it, but we'll take a look at what they did. So they sold about 60 million shares of Apple, 75 million shares of Wells Fargo, as well as Pfizer, JP Morgan, and Barrick Gold. So that's what they sold, and they bought names like Kroger, AbbVie, Bristol Myers, Chevron, and Verizon. So that's what they're taking a look at, and pretty much this article talks about, hey, what is their forwards price to earnings ratio? What does their balance sheet look like? What does their free cash generation look like? And it does talk about, hey, there's nothing to really dislike about Apple. So it's not like Apple is not a good buy anymore. It's more that Apple is kind of extended. Apple is trading at a much higher price to earnings ratio than they typically have. So they typically were looking at a price to earnings ratio of 15, and they're trading kind of at the 29. So that's what they're talking about here. Nothing to really be worried about, right? Other names that they've sold were JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, and Barrick Gold, right? So really quickly wanted to cover that. I don't think it's that big of a deal, right? They still own a ton of Apple shares, so nothing to really worry about, like I said, and we'll get right back into the stock. So taking a look here, right, we fell on Tuesday, and then kind of try to hit up against that 133 level, and then Wednesday was a pretty nasty looking fall too. That's when we were talking about, hey, do we go back to visit that 34 EMA, or do we fall to the 55 EMA for support? And then we kind of came above this 130 level, but then Thursday we really dropped down again, right, and made a low of 127.41. But the good news was we started pushing up and ended the day not too red. And then on Friday, right, we pushed up, tried to break into this 130, couldn't really sustain it, dropped all the way down here, but didn't quite make it to our lower level. And then we ended in the very high 129s, pretty much, closing right below the 130 level. So that's what this past week was, you guys. Nothing, too crazy in terms of good news that we got, other than that kind of news with Warren Buffett kind of selling off, which as we know, is a little bit of, not great news. But we also talked about, why that's not really a worry. It's more that, he sees value in some other companies, not that he doesn't see value in Apple. And Apple, the valuation is a little bit high, right? But so is the valuation of a lot of other companies that have kind of ran up this past year, right? So that's why I'm not too worried. I see great potential in Apple, right? If you guys looked at the earnings of this past quarter, we're talking record earnings, and that's something that I expect to continue. Maybe not with iPhones because this was the first 5G iPhone, so a lot of people upgraded. But as they go more into services, right, that's a recurring revenue, whereas an iPhone is a one-time purchase. If you're signing up for Apple Music, if you're signing up for Apple Fitness, if you're signing up for Apple TV, right, those are recurring, monthly payments that people are likely to make. And once you're kind of in the ecosystem, right, you're pretty much there for good, whether that's, Spotify or Apple Music, right? Or whether that's iCloud or some other storage that you use. So I think services is going to be a key, thing to focus on with Apple in the future. And I do think that, I personally see a lot of potential there. So the other thing I want to talk about, you guys, is this trend line here that we were looking at, right? And the reason we were looking at it is because of, this reason right here. So if we go here back to November, what we'll see is, we bounced off of this line, bounced again, and then for, a while there, we kept bouncing, even here not too long ago, early February, we almost came down to that line and we bounced. But this past week, if I zoom in just a little bit, right, about 3 days ago, we were talking about, hey, this is kind of the point. I'm going to actually get rid of this because I don't think it really means much anymore. This is the point where we really need to bounce off of this line. Unfortunately, we didn't get that, but what we did get was a gap down and a push down in the next 2 days. And now we, for the first time on Friday in a really long time, right, if you take a look here, pretty much going back to early February, now it's pretty late February right now, right? But if you go back to early February, you take a look, and if I were to draw a line here, the trend is clearly going down, right? We're making lower highs in many cases, if not lower highs and lower closing prices. And we're also making lower lows over the, over this 2 or week or so period. So that's what we've seen. So after a while here, right, what we had on Friday was a higher high and a higher low, right? I don't necessarily like to say, hey, this is it, jump in, buy a ton of Apple shares. That's not the way I trade. I'm never going to tell you guys to do that. What I like doing instead is looking at levels, as you guys know, right? Look, I don't know if Apple's going to go to 140 this week or if it's going to go to 140 in the next couple weeks, but I do think that eventually we get back to 140. To get to 140, here are the levels that I think we need to break, right? And what I do then is I take a look at every level that it struggled at. That's how I trade, okay? So as I shared with you guys 2 days ago, I did pick up an Apple call going out to, let me take a look here. I believe it's going out to July, but let me just check real quick. I'm not up on that call yet, so let's take a look here. I have a 140 call going out to June, right? So I gave myself time until June for my thesis to work out, because kind of monitoring Apple over the past few weeks, it's been a very slow mover, right? So if I were to buy a closer term call option, I have a ticking clock. But by giving myself time until June, I give myself time to be right either now, or maybe we go up a little, we consolidate, and then we start to push up. That's my reasoning for it. I did pay a little bit more than if I had bought a closer time call, but at the same time, right, I do want that time on my side because I know Apple has been a little bit of a slow mover. So the thing I like about Apple now, as I said, is do we see a little bit of a rounding out, right? If I go to Palantir, we were talking about the same thing for Palantir just a couple weeks ago. This, right? And that's when we started making a higher high, higher low, and then it pushed up just a little bit more. So same thing happening right now. That's what I'm kind of seeing on Apple, you guys, is if this trend continues, which means we make higher highs and higher lows over the next couple of days, this could be the start of a nice run taking us into the 130s, potentially even high 130s in the upcoming weeks. And then we can, if we can consolidate a little there and make a push towards all-time high. Not saying that that's going to happen this week, right? If other people are telling you that, maybe they're right, maybe they're not, I don't know, but I'm going to be 100% honest with you, right? Apple's been a slow mover. Still think it's a great stock. I hold all my shares in Apple. but it's a slow mover, and that's just what it is. So now let's talk about future levels of support, future levels of resistance, and then kind of key things that I'm watching out for moving into this week. So let's cover the downside real quick. If we were to revisit down, what I'm looking at first and foremost is this 128.50s level, where we kind of bounced on Friday. We bounced at the 128.80s, but really 128.50s. Then I'm looking at the low of the day before, which is 127.40s. And then I'm looking at the, really mid 126s, which is kind of where this 89 EMA is. And that's what I'm looking at from a level of support. The reason I really like the 89 EMA, if I scroll out here just a second, take a look at this bottom line, right? Pretty much since COVID, kind of the post-COVID run that started, we really haven't visited it too many times. But when we have, like we did back in late September and early November, we've bounced really nicely off of that, pushed up, bounced, pushed up, kind of bounced, and then pushed up, right? So that's why I think the 89 EMA, which again is in the 126s, like low to mid 126s, should hold up as really, really good level of support. Now, if I zoom in and we can cover the upside, and taking a look at, what we need to look at on the upside as the stock starts to move up, which I'm hoping for this week. First things first, you guys, breaking into 130s and being able to maintain 130s is going to be a key test for us this week. Definitely think it's doable, but once we can break into the 130s and get above this 55 EMA, my goal is to use that 55 EMA. Right now we're talking about, hey, if we drop 89 EMA in the 126s, is that level of support. I want us to be above the 55 EMA so that this level could be good support. And then the next level is the mid 131s. Then I'm looking at mid 132s, and then I'm looking at 133.60s. That's kind of what we have to break through this week. And if we can do that, I think we solidify 133s as the base again, as we did, back here with 136s for a little bit. Then I think we can really establish a base and start to push up. But it's really, really crucial that we, take over some of that on our ride up. So if this week ends up being a good week for Apple, what I'm expecting is, we break into the 130s and then, break into these three levels over the next couple of days, maybe take a break above 133s. And then that's kind of where we establish ourselves so that in future, days or weeks, we start to really push up towards the 136, 138. That's what I'm hoping for if this trend continues. So really what I'm looking for is a capture of the 55 EMA, which is in the low 130s, 130.40s, I believe, $130.40. Other thing is higher high, higher low. So if you see Apple dropping, what we're hoping for is we don't go below 128.80 and we do make a high higher than $130.71. And hopefully we start to, maybe do some sort of a trend line in, not maybe tomorrow's video or maybe the other day where we start to maybe use that line as a little bit of a support, right? So that's why I continue to hold my Apple shares, because I'm, bullish on Apple. Bought that call here because I do think that, if we were to go down, we've got really solid support in the 89 EMA. If we were to visit the 89 EMA though, which is again $3 away right now, that would kind of be the test for me. If that test fails, I'm probably out of that call. But as long as we can, move into the 130s, start pushing up, I'll continue that call. And then the other thing is, I have a vertical put spread that I'm monitoring right now. It's down a little, but I have until March 19th. So hoping for Apple to be above 132.50 by then. I think we can do it. So that's what we have for Apple this week, guys. Not a great trading week, but as you can see, there's hope because we maybe have rounded out at the bottom. So I'll keep you guys posted on that. Let me know down in the comment section what you guys are doing with Apple, and I'd love to chat with you guys down there. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Let's remember to be a bit better every single day, and until next time.